In Venezuela, the over phase of planning Independence 200 continues with the installation of integral defense commandos. And UNICEF denounced Israel for blocking the entry of syringes intended for child vaccination and formula milk into the Gaza Strip as part of its genocidal actions. And in Georgia, rescue and emergency teams continue the search for survivors after a Turkish military cargo plane crashed near the Azerbaijani border. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the upper phase of the Independence 200 plan continues with the installation of integral defense commandos. The operations took place in Apure State, Cogede States, and the Capital District. In this scenario, the Bolivarian National Armed Forces were deployed in a civil-military popular union. These exercises aim to defend the country from foreign interference, as President Nicolás Maduro has repeatedly stated. The Plan Independence 200 has been deployed since early September under the concept of active and permanent defense resistance, and its upper phase seeks to optimize command, control, and communications within the framework of armed and unarmed forms of struggle for the comprehensive defense of the nation. In other news, Colombian President Gustavo Petro ordered the immediate suspension of intelligence cooperation with the United States security agencies on Tuesday. The decision comes after military operations carried out by the United States off the coast of Venezuela, in the Caribbean Sea, and the Eastern Pacific, which have left around 76 people killed and some 20 boats destroyed. The president justified the decision by pointing out that the fight against drugs must be subordinated to the human rights of the Caribbean people, and reiterated that the U.S. attacks constitute violations of sovereignty and international law. Colombia thus joins the United Kingdom, which will also suspend intelligence sharing with the U.S. on operations in the Caribbean. And the National Human Rights Council of Brazil demanded that the state declare a state of public calamity to address the widespread violence against indigenous peoples and the structural collapse of public policies aimed at them. Our colleague Ignacio Lemus has the details.
Mientras los ojos están en las negociaciones.
While all eyes are on the climate change conference negotiations, on the other side of Brazil, in Mato Grosso do Sul, a state on the border with Paraguay, the Guarani Kaiowá seem to strengthen their struggle. After reclaiming part of their territory in the Wiraroca indigenous land, the indigenous people were violently replaced by landowners and police.
There
were 4 attacks. Most of them involving riot police. They said they had orders, but most of them were illegal.
Los territorios ancestrales.
The ancestral territories that once were forests are now invaded by large extensions of soybean and corn monocultures. Together with sugarcane, these raw materials are used as livestock feed or for the production of biofuels. Indigenous people complain that the agrochemicals used in large-scale farming reach their villages, destroy their gardens, and poison their water.
Our minds are steadfast. We fight with tears in our eyes, shedding our tears in our land, and we always remain steadfast. We are asking for help. At least, give us the piece of land so we can breathe the poisonous air better.
La transición energética.
The energy transition to prevent global warming requires the replacement of fossil fuels, the main sources of gas emissions into the atmosphere. At COP30, agribusinesses is lobbying in favor of the production of so-called green fuels. For the Guarani Kaiowá, there is little that is green about a model that expels communities and feeds off the blood of indigenous communities.
We are not taking all of Brazil, just a piece to leave a space for our grandchildren. To leave it, to plant, to produce. To bring back the plants, to bring back the fruits, to plant for our children.
El Consejo Nacional de Derechos Humanos de Brasil
The National Human Rights Council of Brazil declared a state of systematic violations of the human rights of indigenous peoples and called for actions by the state. Recovering their land and planting crops is the desire of the Guarani Kiowa. Still healing from the wounds of the latest violent attacks, they continue to replace soybeans with traditional, diverse and poison-free crops.
Ignacio Lemus y Pedro Viaba para teleSUR.
In other topics, the candidates in Chile's presidential election ended their campaigns on Tuesday with 5 days to go before the ballots open. The presidential candidate for the governing Unity for Chile coalition, Janet Jara, closed her campaign with a rally in the historic Plaza de Maipú, attended by around 20,000 people. The flag bearer for 8 left-wing social democratic and progressive parties, plus the Christian Democrats, expressed her excitement about the rally in the square where Chile's independence was sealed. For his part, the far-right candidate Jose Antonio Cast was accompanied by about 10,000 people in downtown Santiago at the Movistar Arena, where the conservative representative reiterated his intention to establish an emergency government to address insecurity. In Costa Rica, hundreds of people took to the streets to protest against the policies of President Rodrigo Chavez's government. The protest is taking place amid growing public outrage after Parliament refused to lift the president's immunity so he could be tried for corruption. Chavez faces charges of extortion by the prosecutor's office, a crime that carries a maximum sentence of 8 years in prison. However, a judicial proposal to remove his parliamentary immunity was rejected by legislators, generating severe criticism from civil society groups and opponents who called the act a blow to democracy. And protests continue in the Dominican Republic due to the massive power outage that left the entire country without electricity and paralyzed essential services. Public outrage was expressed by burning tires and blocking streets in various areas. The power failure severely affected hospitals, banks, small businesses, and thousands of homes, also causing traffic to grind to a halt on all roads and interrupting the water supply. According to the Minister of Energy and Mines, Joel Santos, the incident was caused by a failure that ended up affecting the entire system, creating a blackout, and confirmed that the national government is working to restore electricity service gradually. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Egypt, polling stations in Giza Governorate began vote counting for the parliamentary elections. Under the supervision of commission chairpersons and electoral supervisors, employees began the process by opening the ballot boxes and destroying the seals before proceeding to count the votes. After 2 days of voting in several governorates, the count in the assigned areas continued without interruption. Other regions are still waiting for their electoral process to begin in the coming weeks. The objective of the elections for the House of Representatives is to allocate 568 seats through a combination of systems, individual candidacies, and party lists. And at least 12 people were killed and 27 wounded Tuesday in a suicide bombing outside a court in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. This attack, the first of its kind in the city in years, was claimed by the Pakistani Taliban group. The explosion caused panic among the population in an area where several government offices are also located. Pakistan has experienced an increase in attacks by armed groups since 2021, but Islamabad had largely remained untouched by militant violence in recent years, while the last suicide bombing occurring in December 2022. The Pakistani Taliban group claimed responsibility for the suicide bombing in Islamabad, Pakistan, which left 12 dead and 27 injured. In a statement, the organization said its targets were judges, lawyers, and officials who enforced non-Islamic laws and threatened to carry out more attacks until Islamic law was enforced in the country. The attack was perpetrated in front of a district court in the Pakistani capital when a suicide bomber blew himself up next to a police vehicle. It is the first attack of this type against the city center in years. Meanwhile, in Sudan, United Nations Women denounces systematic human rights violations, killings and disappearances of children following the takeover of the city of El Fasher by rapid support forces. The regional directorate of the Organization for East and Southern Africa condemned the deliberate use of sexual violence by armed groups against hundreds of displaced women. It warned about the lack of safe spaces and the risk posed by the search for food for 11 million women and girls to kidnapping, assaults, and gender-based violence. In this regard, ministers and senior officials from 23 countries in Europe, America, and Australia denounced what they consider to be war crimes and crimes against humanity. UNICEF denounced Israel for blocking the entry of syringes intended for child vaccination and formula milk into the Gaza Strip as part of its genocidal actions. UNICEF has begun a vaccination campaign targeting 40,000 children under the age of 3 who have not been able to be vaccinated due to Israel's attacks on Gaza. This emergency intervention is vital to rebuild the damage caused to the coastal entity's health system. According to the health authorities of the territory, since the ceasefire came into effect in October, Israeli forces have killed at least 236 Palestinians and injured another 600. These figures are in addition to the 68,875 dead and 170,679 injured due to Zionist offensives since October 2023. Also in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces carried out attacks against residential areas in the Gaza Strip. Zionist aggression has led to the displacement of thousands of Palestinians so far. Meanwhile, the search for bodies has been hindered by the blockade imposed by Tel Aviv against Palestinian civil protection teams, who are also being prevented from rescuing the wounded. It should be noted that the Gaza government authorities are making continuous efforts to bring a definitive end to the hostilities, the total withdrawal of Israeli troops, and the release of Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. And Palestinian resistance movements described as a war crime the Israeli parliament's approval in first reading of a law authorizing the execution of Palestinian prisoners. The Israeli execution law was unanimously rejected by Palestinian movements who warned that the law legalizes systematic murder and turns military courts into instruments for legalized death. The Palestinian resistance denounced that the law not only reflects the racist nature of the occupation, but also formally legitimizes the killing of detainees under the state's legal framework. Although it still has to pass a parliamentary committee and 2 additional readings for final approval, the initiative has been condemned by global human rights organizations for violating international humanitarian law. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Georgia, rescue and emergency teams continue the search for possible survivors after a Turkish military cargo plane crashed near the border with Azerbaijan. Turkish emergency teams are also working at the scene of the accident to secure the area and prevent further risks. The Turkish Ministry of Defense confirmed that the C-130 cargo plane was carrying 20 military personnel, including crew and staff. The wreckage of the aircraft was scattered over a wide rural area near the village of Singnagi. Although the official cause of the accident has not yet been announced, Turkey is expected to launch a thorough investigation to determine the cause and the circumstances. And in Austria, hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside parliament to protest against a tribute to the Nazis. The action took place after the first far-right parliamentary president, Walter Rosenkranz, organized an event to honor Franz Dinghofer, former vice-chancellor and member of the Nazi Party. Protesters displayed banners with slogans calling for remembrance of the past and the fight against extremism. Writers and historians who attended the demonstration pointed out that honoring such figures represents a historical and moral problem for the country in reference to the crimes committed during World War II. Meanwhile, in China, President Xi Jinping welcomed King Philip VI of Spain to Beijing, who is on an official visit to the Asian giant. King Felipe VI recalled that since the first visit by the Spanish crown in 1978, a solid bilateral relationship based on mutual trust has been forged. The Chinese leader recognized the Spanish royal house's contributions to developing relations between the two countries. He emphasized that together they have set an example of friendly coexistence and joint development between countries with different stories, cultures, and social systems. The monarch, who last visited the Asian country during the 2008 Olympic Games, stated that since then, China's advancement and progress has been very notable. Preparations are advancing in Shanghai for the Global South Academic Forum 2025, which will bring together researchers from Asia, Africa, and Latin America around the role of the Global South in a new international order. Our correspondent Bruno Falsi brings us the details from the Chinese city.
Hello, comrades from teleSUR and the audience following us in this transmission. I am now in Shanghai, in China, to inform you that everything is ready to the start of the 2025 Global South Academic Forum, organized by the Institute of International Communication Research at East China Normal University. The forum was launched in 2023 with the first edition in Shanghai, as we are here now, with more than 100 academics from 20 countries participated in it, leading to the Shanghai Academic Consensus. In 2024, the edition held under the theme The Global South and World Modernization brought together more than 250 participants from 35 countries, consolidating a network that connect more than 1,000 researchers and experts from the Global South. The 2025 edition will address the victory of the anti-fascist war and the post-war international order, past and future, continue the reflection on the historical and contemporary challenge of the international system. The forum also promotes academic initiatives such as bilingual published series, the translations of work from the Global South, and the Digital Sovereignty Index, which measures the country's technological independence. With these actions, China strengthened the collaboration between South and South and the cooperation between the Global South, promoting a more equitable and inclusive international dialogue. With this news, we return with you in La Habana, Cuba.
In Uganda, heavy rains are hampering rescue efforts following landslides in the east of the country. Civil protection teams continue to recover bodies from the mud and debris in the Sebei region after intense and prolonged rainfall in the Elgon Highlands, which also caused massive landslides on steep slopes in previous weeks. Military and police teams have joined the rescue efforts, while the government has ordered support to each family for funeral arrangements. It should be noted that meteorological authorities have warned that rain and landslides are expected in the coming weeks. And the United States is experiencing an intense cold snap from the northern Great Plains, affecting over 18 million people in the state of Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. According to meteorologists, the cold snap caused an abrupt transition to winter temperatures, including a low of -2 degrees Celsius in Jacksonville, Florida. The National Weather Service forecasts that cities such as New York and localities in Rochester, Buffalo, and Jamestown will receive between 5 and 15 centimeters of snow. Experts also forecast the arrival of a new storm system that would bring additional snowfall for next Wednesday. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.